Over towards Cook. Cook gets a right foot kick in towards the goals, and it's going to be a goal.
Andrew Parker kicks a fine goal.
See the player's face. Now Launceston coming in towards centre half forward. Ball tapped over the back. This is clever play. Andrew Parker comes through, gets the drop punt, kicking towards full forward. Here's McCrimmon. McCrimmon lets it go.
Wills
have had 5 single goal kickers. Better players for Launceston: Parker, Scott, Stevens, Pennington, Swain, Squires and Walsh. For South Launceston, Morgan, head and shoulders above the rest, Bygraves, Clayton, Curran and James. 3, 2 and 1, I thought 3 to Andrew Parker for a superb effort for 4 quarters on the wing, 2 to Peter Scott for tremendous play in the centre, and 1 to Hoss Stevens, a great backman's game.
Now, Stephen, our encouragement award, our Century Motors encouragement award?
Yes, the player I thought yesterday who was unlucky to miss out on a vote, young fellow Peter Swain. It's his first season in the seniors at Launceston, and he's playing very good football. Kicked 3 goals yesterday, 2 in the third quarter. An exceptional game in the conditions.
It was a landmark for Dale Tubb yesterday.
Yes, Tubby, 100 senior games up for him. Congratulations must go out to him, and just sorry the team couldn't do a little bit better for him. And one word for the South Launceston supporters. Young Rod Bassett, still in hospital, as most of you probably realise, after getting hurt at Longford last week. If anybody can get up to see him at hospital, be much appreciated, and I'll try and get up this week and see you too, Bass.
Thanks very much, Stephen. And for young Swaney, young Peter, that's the Kings Meadows branch of the Century Motors Company. That's the encouragement award, and there'll be a letter in the mail for you very, very shortly, Peter, and you can pop along to your branch out there, Century Motors at Kings Meadows, and pick up your prize. Now, let's check the Bogues ladder after yesterday's round of matches. Longford on top with 52, then Georgetown's got... Picked up here by Nathan Richardson. He backhands his right boot. Here's a chance now for South Launceston. Picked up for them. Comes clear. Out comes again the hand pass. Launceston here deep into attack. Picked up a great shot by Peter Scott. Has he got the distance? He's got the distance. And square. Squires coming out towards the full forward position. Snapped up the goal by the Launceston player. And I think he's got it. He kicks a fine goal.
Couldn't take the grab. Ball quickly comes down to the ball forcing it on. So this is Duncan. Kicks around on the right foot. This is a great shot by Duncan. And Peter hunts right into the full forward position there at the moment. Running too quickly with Squires has a snap towards the full forward position. Oh, he's a chance for Couch. Will he pick the ball up the ground? He does so. And he scores a vital goal. Right up into the full forward position. No one can take the mark. Ball quickly picks.
Snaps another.
Right throughout this quarter. Rolf got the tap back time. Quickly comes over towards Cook. Cook gets the right foot kick in towards the goal. And it's going to be consistent. Coming in towards centre half forward. Ball tapped over the back. Just clever play. Andrew Parker comes through, gets the drop punt, kick in towards full forward. Here's McCrimmon. McCrimmon lets it go, and it's a goal. Full forward, the leader good. Ball in there to trap the ball well, but Leary steps in on the half forward line. Goes for goal and he puts it through. Bit angle. He's only 15 metres out of the goal. Side badly needing a goal. He's threaded it through. Very good now. Lines the goals up to the drop punt kick. He's certainly got the distance. He's punted up right through the middle. Even would be enough to be his kick for goal. He allows for the win. I'll tell you what, it's a magnificent kick for goal. He's played well. He's going to get the game and didn't know what to do with it. Thomas breaks clear. 15 metres out. He puts it home for come towards. I think that might be Kerry Good. He gives it back towards Harding. Harding runs towards goal. Well, considering the conditions yesterday, there were some fine goals kicked, particularly at Windsor Park. And Andrew, for that fine goal you kicked for South Launceston, there was only one of their 5 that they kicked. There's the pair of Lee jeans, which you get for kicking the goal of the day, and there will be a letter in the mail for you very, very shortly at your club headquarters up there at Youngtown. See Des Egan, and you'll be able to pick it up from him. You can see there the scoreboard said Launceston 15-10-100 to Deloraine 9-5-59, and our commentator at the game is Stephen Hordle. How are you, Steve?
Pretty good, Ray, thanks.
How's the neck?
Coming on. It's nice and slowly, but it's improving.
Cold weather not helping, I suppose?
No, it's a little bit cold these days. Well, yesterday I thought that Deloraine had a really big chance to take it right up to the Blues and go 2-1 for the year. Wasn't to be. Even without O'Donoghue and Dutton in the side, Launceston were able to control the game right from the first bounce almost. And even though they lost Pennington early in the first quarter with a bad gash over his forehead, they were still able to maintain their winning run around the packs, and it was here that I thought that they took the game away from Deloraine. Not so much in the rucking division itself, where I thought Lambert and Walsh had a very good tussle, but it was around the smaller players in Cook, who I thought played an exceptional game. Barry Pickett played well. Scott got his usual quota of kicks out of the centre, and it was the bloke in the first quarter, Swain, up in the forward line, who kicked 2 goals and got them rolling, and Launceston bounced away to a 5-goal lead at quarter time. Dargaville, he was a good player for Launceston in the first quarter in defence, as was Thurlow. We expect that of him nearly every week, that he puts in a serviceable game, and he did yesterday again. Launceston combined better, they looked for each other, they moved in 3s and sometimes 4s in packs, whereas Deloraine were hesitant to go and get the ball. They weren't first to it, and when they were first to it on the ball, to the ball on the ground, they didn't get it out to a teammate at all times. They would get it out, but quickly rush it out, and Launceston, because they had the numbers, were able to take it away.
And I thought there, Stephen, was Philip Moyer, one of the best kicks and disposal experts in the game. I thought his disposal in the first half left a lot to be desired, and I think he believed so himself too.
I would expect so. I wasn't talking to him after the game, but he must have played a very good game last week. But yesterday, as you say, with Phil's disposal, he still played a pretty good game for the Roos, but his disposal at times was lacking. He's a player that can kick the 55, 60 metres all the time, but continually yesterday, it's twice we've seen now, his disposal was offline, and it was the short kicks, the underground passes that he went for that disappointed me, because it didn't give his forwards in Scotty down forward and Gurr, who I thought Gurr was leading and trying to do the job of a full forward, but he had to lead out so far from full forward that when he did get the ball, he was too far out to score. I thought it was a good move in the second half when they put Gurr to centre-half forward. He got a few grabs then, but wasn't able to score because he was too far out. He's not a long kicker of the ball, and they weren't looking for him enough. He's a player that will move around. I've seen him 2 or 3 times this year, and he likes to move around and lead, but if the ball's not being delivered to him, he's being crowded by the opposition backs. Rainbow yesterday, I thought, played quite well after quarter time. The third quarter especially in defence across the half-back line, he played very well. Skipper on screen now, played a serviceable game, but the conditions should have suited him right down to the ground, a strong, robust sort of player, and he probably should have done a lot more than what he did. But even still, it was those 3 players, Moyer, Rainbow and Skipper, the experienced players at times, who got Deloraine rolling in the second quarter by looking for each other, and at times they did kick long, but they didn't do it enough to get Deloraine right back into it. They outscored Deloraine in the second quarter 4 goals to 2, but it was all Launceston throughout the day, and I was very disappointed with Delorane's application, because I thought that some of their players, they weren't timid in any regard, but they weren't putting themselves in. They were standing back, waiting to grab the Launceston players. Parker, who I thought was down in the first quarter, McLennan was definitely on top of him, but then Parker lifted his game, and once he's given a yard, that bloke will cut you to pieces, and he kicked 4 goals from the wing, which is a superb effort. Also, I thought for Deloraine, young Lambert, as we mentioned, Ray, he's a very good future, I think. He's a player that up against it each week. He's hardly got anyone to change with, so he's got a ruck for most of the game. He did it well yesterday. He came up against Walsh. All right, well, Walsh is taller, more experienced, and probably beat him in the tap-outs, but Lambert does a lot of work around the ground as well, and he's quite quick. And when Swain went onto the ball, I thought that Lambert took over, taking nothing away from Swain either, because he ended up with 5 goals in 3 quarters of the game, and it was only a kick in the face by the ball, another goal to Swain there in the beginning of the last quarter, that Swain went off the ground. Possibly a broken nose, I don't know, it didn't look too good. But
he's a big, strong bloke.
He'll come back. But it was that young fellow Cook, I thought, and Barry Pickett and Scotty here, who really kept the Blues rolling, kept them going forward. McCrimmon was an in-and-out sort of player yesterday, I thought. He's always a goer, Johnny McCrimmon, and even though it might be at the umpire sometimes, he's a focal point for them. But I think now that Dutton's out, with O'Donoghue out as well, I think that McCrimmon has got to do a little bit more. And in the last half yesterday, it was Cayley who gave the Blues a lot of drive indeed from the centre half forward position, but he was often too far out to score. And I thought that in the last half he really upset Clayton's concentration by moving around more. Clayton, not a fast player, likes to take the big mark and kick long, and a couple of times yesterday Clayton did that, and it set up moves down the field for the Roos, and they scored goals quite easily. One in the second quarter, a string of hand passes, they ended up with a goal. But it wasn't enough for the Roos. They were outclassed yesterday, and I think that they've got a lot of homework to do. I don't believe they can play that badly for 4 quarters again. I think that next week when they come out, they'll be a completely different side.
Well done, Stephen. Let's have a look at the final scores again, where we saw Launceston 15-10-100, defeating Deloraine 9-5-59, a margin of 41 points. Now let's see some edited highlights from the game. McCrimmon marks and kicks a long goal.
Courage shown here by Scott. Scott swings around, dominated last week, and Scott gets his kick in towards centre half forward. Here's McCrimmon. Moves in. Goes for the big drop punt kick. It's a great kick, and there's a goal.
Andrew Scott marks well under pressure. Away from the centre. But it's intercepted by Moyer for Deloraine. He got a quick right boot kick. Oh, good mark, Scott. Lambert marks well for Deloraine.
Hewitt, centre half back. Direct play to this broadcast side of the ground. Looking for his ruckman in Lambert, and Lambert takes a good strong mark.
Swain caps off a Launceston forward move with a goal. Controls the ball, kicks back, but only as far as Squires. Squires takes the mark. Out comes a long hand pass from him to Barry Pickett. Barry Pickett in turn to his brother in Mark Pickett, who runs in from centre half forward, but he was too slow, and he was tackled from behind. And this attack by Launceston, a very promising attack by Launceston, has been converted as Peter Swain, I think it is, has picked up the loose ball and has put it through for a goal to Launceston. Cook kicks a fine goal.
40 metres out from goal. Drop punt kick, looks good.
1 minute later, and Andrew Parker adds another. Up towards centre half forward, coming across the pack, nearly taking the mark there was Swain. Out it comes towards Mark Pickett, in turn to Barry Pickett. He controls the ball, the long hand pass comes out towards Parker. Parker with plenty of time to steady, drives right up towards the full forward line. Over the heads of the pack it is, and I think it's gone through for a goal, it is. Peter Swain kicks Launceston's fifth, and they open up a big lead. Kicks the ball long off the boot too. It's got the distance and it's got the direction, I think. 4 points to Launceston, kicked by Peter Swain. Lambert again marks strongly for Deloraine. Former City South player in Graham Cayley. He'll kick long, does so, right up towards the edge of the 15-metre square. Players set themselves. Oh, strong mark. Great mark taken for Deloraine and taken by Lambert. McCrimmon caps off a fine mark with a goal.
Score the goal here. Players hit the ground. Squires has dragged off it. Rogers, he's had a shot a moment ago. Kicked right across the face of goal. Anyone home? Yes, McCrimmon.
Phillips marks well under pressure for Launceston. That's Thurlow kicking the ball from the half-back. Oh, that's good mark there, taken by Phillips. Philpott into an open goal for Deloraine's first.
Plenty of weight being used in this game as Skipper picks it up, the big centre half forward. Now Skipper gets his kick in towards full forward. Oh, up high there with the Blues. Couldn't take the mark. That player's winded himself. Now he's Gurr. He's picked up the ball, kicks in towards full forward. There's no one home except someone for the Deloraine team and Philpott. And Philpott has registered their first goal.
Moments later, McClellan scores from the goal square.
Full forward goes for the big kick. Philpott over the back and takes the mark. No, he doesn't. Plays on, taps the ball out, quickly tapped across. Ball off the ground. Is it a goal? McClellan, yes.
McCrimmon shows his class with a fine goal.
Meanwhile, Cayley punches the ball on, thumps it towards Pickett. Pickett over towards McCrimmon. McCrimmon down through centre half forward, goes for the big kick towards goals. Hits the post. 1 goal.
Launceston, Swain 5 in 3 quarters, Parker 4 and McCrimmon 3, and for Deloraine, McClellan and Scott 2 each. The best players for Launceston, Cook, Thurlow, Parker, Walsh, Swain, Pickett and Scott. And for Deloraine, Lambert, Rainbow, Moyer, McLennan, Lennox and Hewitt. 3, 2 and 1, 3 votes to young Cook from Launceston, superb effort in the conditions. 2 to Thurlow, never beaten, and Parker 1 for his 4 goals from the wing.
Steve, what about our Century Motors Encouragement Award? The young player we hope will have a big future.
Yes, well, one bloke that's carrying the rucks for Deloraine at the moment and doing a very good job, as we saw yesterday, is young Todd Lambert. and I think Todd would be a very deserving winner of it. He's only a young chap, first season of senior football, and he's got a tremendous responsibility, and we saw yesterday that he certainly shouldered it very well.
Okay, Steve, thanks very much. And then, Toddy, there'll be a letter in the mail to you, care of the Deloraine Football Club, the secretary, and pop into Century Motors out there at Kings Meadows, and you'll be able to pick up your letter of authorisation and also your trophy for our Encouragement Award for season 1986, and keep up the good work for Deloraine. Let's check the Bogues ladder. After yesterday's round of matches, we'll be find on top Longford with 56, Georgetown 40, Launceston 32 and Scottsdale 28 together with Deloraine, and outside we have South Launceston 12 and North Launceston on 4. Well done, Andrew. You've kicked quite a few goals in your career with Launceston, and a couple of beauties over the last few weeks, and I think you deserve the goal of the day for that effort yesterday. It was a great snapshot, one of your 4 for the winning side, the Blues, and there'll be a letter in the mail for you very, very shortly, and you'll be able to pop along to your nearest Fitzgerald store, that's in the Mall of Launceston, and pick yourself up a magnificent pair of Lee jeans. Yes, they didn't score in that first quarter, but they ran out winners 12-14-86 to Launceston, 11-12-78, a margin of 8 points. The goal kickers for Georgetown, Mansell kicked 4 and Shepherd 3, whilst Barry Pickett was the major goal kicker for Launceston, he kicked 3. Better players were for Georgetown were Viney, Nadler, Marr, Fafaro, Clark, Shepherd and Bannon. For Launceston, Squires, Walsh, Pickett, Thurlow and Parker. And voting saw the undefeated run of Longford come to an abrupt end by a most determined Launceston. Longford and Launceston, and our commentator at the game was Graham Wilkinson. How are you, Graham?
Really fine, thanks, Ray. And 16 games in a row the Tigers had won, and they met their downfall on the Windsor Park Oval against a very committed Launceston side. Probably the best team effort I've seen from Launceston in probably about 10 years of watching them play. And they achieved it in a remarkable manner. They were very confident right from the very first bounce, and once that Walsh got the first tap of the game, it was very apparent that he was to play a big part in the game. I thought that the conditions did suit Launceston, but Longford have got to realise, of course, that these could be the conditions in a finals series, and they have to be able to adapt to it. But it was the Launceston side yesterday who showed that they were a very determined team. They came out with great enthusiasm. They were obviously revved up for this game, and they had great players all over the field. I thought the tremendous effort that was put in by their medium-sized players, particularly Squires and Scott. I thought Scott gave a great lead to his side early in the centre of the ground, and although Dakin came back very hard and played a major role for Longford throughout the game, I thought that Scott did a marvellous job for his side as well. And with the big fellow Walsh doing extremely well in the ruck, and Donahue and Cayley doing good work up on their forward line, Longford were finding it very difficult to get their game flowing. I thought Kirk did some great work for them early in the game, and that goal that he kicked from the boundary line was an absolute brilliant piece of football, a magnificent kick on his wrong foot, but he drove it through, and that gave the Tigers quite a good start. And with Baker hovering around the ground, and that mark he also took what was one of the highlights of the game, where he just hovered like a hawk in the air, suspended up there and took that magnificent mark on the half-forward flank for Longford, were good signs for them. But against this, the Launceston side were always first in for the ball, and in those greasy and muddy conditions yesterday, it was a valuable asset to have their players so committed. And with that asset, winning the ball and getting the ball out into their forward area, they did a marvellous job. They had McCrimmon, who's provided a great spark for them down on the half-forward line, a very good contributor for Launceston throughout the year, and he just popped in every now and again with his goals. He got 4 for the whole episode and played a major part for Launceston. And also the Launceston defence early was tremendous. I thought Thurlow and Dargaville were outstanding in a great half-back line for them. And that springboard of attack that they just had there for them set up many opportunities further up the field. It was very tight. At quarter time, of course, there was only the 7 points margin in favour of Longford. But then Launceston really got in the top gear in the second quarter, and this is where they won the game. They really plastered the Longford side. They kicked 5 goals in an excellent exhibition and set up their victory. They had tremendous players. The Pickett boys got into the action with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of endeavour and a lot of strength. And every now and again, that little number 7 would pop into the scene, provide a bit of muscle for his side and get the ball out into the open. And with their forward line moving well, they had a lot of opportunities. And they kicked those 5 goals in that second quarter and raced away to a 21-point lead at half-time. And the Tigers well and truly knew that they had a game on their hands in the third quarter. There were good signs for them, of course. Our champion side will always come back. And Longford, with their 16 victories behind them this year and a desire to keep that intact, came out in the third quarter, but they only did well for about the first 10 minutes. Brewer kicked the goal for them, and Dakin and Upston were tremendous players for them, and they lifted their workload, and the whole Tiger machine started to get on the move. But Launceston, to their credit, with only 8 points up their sleeve, stemmed the flow of opportunities for Longford. Their defence came to their rescue, and with Keane, Dargaville and Thurlow binding together across the half-back line, the Blues were able to just hold sway until the three-quarter time break and a chance to regroup. In the last quarter, it was those small, medium players again for Launceston with that great endeavour. Cook and Squires, who was a great player all day, really came to the fore for them. They just moved the ball across the centre line area of the ground. Scott came back into the game and made good contact with Dakin, and these two players had a sterling tussle. But Scott's contribution in the last quarter was quite notable. And with Thurlow and the big fellow Walsh, who had played a tremendous game for Launceston, he supported his side with great ruck work and also moving across the half-back line to give support to that defence. And the Launceston side, with all of their players firing, and this is where the difference in the two teams were as far as I was concerned, whenever the pressure went on, it was the 18 Blues boys who binded together to give some sort of contribution. Sure, there might have been stars at some stage of the game, but all of them gave support to their top players. The Longford side really were relying on somebody to start the action and be the motivator. And with too few contributing, they just didn't have that drive that they usually have. And they really have got to look at that aspect of their play leading up into the finals, because Launceston does loom as a major threat. And it is necessary, I believe, for the Tigers to regroup, to place their side to its best advantage, and to give more support to their top players. You can't expect Kirk, Baker, Dakin to be the prime movers and also do all of the hard yakka all day. It's up to the smaller and less notable players to come in and give support to those men to make a better team effort, because it was a team effort yesterday that really brought about their downfall. A marvellous exhibition, Ray, by Launceston.
A great game by Launceston. It's probably, as you said earlier, the most committed I've seen a Blues side for about the last 4 or 5 years. Their style of play has differed somewhat. They probably haven't got the depth of brilliance that they've had in past years, but by crikey, they've got plenty of endeavour there.
Well, you know, the difference for their side probably is the inclusion of blokes like Cayley. They brought a bloke named Bailey on yesterday, and I've never seen him before, but he came on and he played a major part for them yesterday by getting in and burrowing in, and it was probably this facet of their play which has been a bit missing over the years. They've been a type of side that people call front runners, or a bit brittle, But yesterday, when the pressure went on, the Launceston side really showed a great team spirit. And this is probably a little bit due to Donahue. Donahue is a great leader. He had a very nasty...
He led by example
Yes,
yesterday.
he led by example. He put his nose where it shouldn't have been on occasion, but he came back very hard. And I think out of he and Gibbons, they probably would have great respect for each other.
And full credit to the umpires for allowing that to go on. Two big men settling the issue between themselves, not being interfered with by the referee, you might say.
I don't know whether they wanted to get where that action sort of was. They might have ended up with a bit of blood on their face as well. But certainly Launceston had a total commitment yesterday. And as I said, those Pickett boys and that other fellow that I picked out here
Bailey,
2 or 3 weeks.
Squires.
And Rogers,
yes.
Buck Rogers, he did a good job for him yesterday.
Swain.
And Swain, like he's a Colin Ward picked him out. He's a top player, Swain. And I think that really it was a great team effort. Yeah. Termine is another boy that did well, and I remember Peter Termine. I played against him many years ago, and it's great to see these sons of former
Only
players
a teenager
coming.
Too.
Yes, and he went from defence and kicked a couple of goals down up forward and showed a bit of versatility. Great stuff, Blues, and a good effort.
Final score yesterday in the clash at Windsor Park saw Launceston 8-10-58, inflicting Longford's first defeat of the season 4-10-34, a margin of 24 points, 4 goals. They didn't muck about. Let's see some edited highlights from the game. Hennessy marks well under pressure.
Here in the first quarter here at Windsor Park between Longford and Launceston. Hennessy takes a good strong mark on that wing.
Mark Pickett marks within shooting distance.
Squires down through centre half forward, coming in towards McCrimmon, but butting in is Mark Pickett.
Longford bring the ball from defence to attack. Clearing kick two, up towards the centre wing position. Off the hands of the packet comes towards Lashman. He controls the ball nicely, then in turn drives well up towards the half-forward line, finds a teammate there in Williams. Williams in turn to a teammate going past into Nellen. Fine passage to play by Longford. To Nellen's long kick going right up towards the full-forward line. It beats all players and slightly offline.
It's centre half forward.
Mark Tate marks well in defence.
Well, here goes for the big kick in towards full forward, but over the back and taking a great mark is Tate.
Ken Kirk of Longford, goals from the acutest of angles.
There's a good chance to put them deep into attack anyway. It's a big kick by Kirk right up into the full forward position. Is it a goal? Yes, it is.
Swain marks well under pressure. Doesn't get all that much distance. In fact, drops well short. Mark is taken by Walsh. He goes on with play. Immediately goes up towards the full forward line, and in front, Swain brings down a good mark. McCrimmon marks and kicks accurately. Swain, not I don't think within kicking distance, kicks up towards the edge of the 15-metre square. Oh, McCrimmon uses his body beautifully and brings down the mark. Kirk again scores for the Tigers.
Squires doesn't quite take the mark. These two boys having a good tussle. Baker rather picks it up and kicks over towards Upston. Upston takes the mark, draws the player. That's clever play. Gets it over towards Denellen. Denellen onto the left boot up towards Brewer. Anyone home. Ball comes off the hands of the pack. This is Ken Kerr. Kicked the last goal. Swings around onto the right boot and another goal to Longford.
Baker shows his aerial skills. And the free kick is going to go to the half-back flanker for Launceston in Robert Dargaville. Dargaville directing play across the ground. Oh, magnificent mark taken by Baker. Kirk also strong in the air. Oh, dummies around the player and his mark showing great skills. Then drives up towards centre half forward. In the centre, Kirk, great mark. Cook to McCrimmon and a goal to the elusive forward.
In quickly leading the race is Cook. Cook, oh, clever play. Karen Cook goes for the short passes. Is there someone? Yes, the mark taken here by McCrimmon.
Termine marks, goals, and the Blues hit the front.
The left foot kick towards goals. Waiting there and taking a great mark is Termine.
Swain marks and another Launceston goal.
So he might be a bit of a key player. Now he handballs it towards Parker. Parker gets the big kick right up and towards the forward pocket. Swain takes a great mark.
McCrimmon puts Launceston further ahead. Towards the half-forward line, and it's McCrimmon once again to take the mark for Launceston, and the Blues are on fire. McCrimmon will drive it long towards the goal square. He does so. The kick is a beauty. It's dropping short in the 15-metre square. Is it dropping short? It's straight through. Great goal to the Blues. Great goal, John McCrimmon.
So pretty few and hard between, but Kirk got 2 for Longford and McCrimmon got 4 for Launceston. And the better players for the Longford side, Upston, Gibbons, Baker, Kirk, Dakin and Brewer. And for Launceston, Thurlow, Pickett, Walsh, Scott, Squires and Cayley. I gave 3, 2 and 1 Ray to all Launceston. Don't often do it, but that's the way I saw it yesterday. I gave 3 to Thurlow, 2 to Pickett and 1 to Walsh.
Graham, this week, I know you'd like to mention, being an old City South player, football and sport in general around Australia suffered a tragic loss with the death of Laurie Nash.
Yeah, well, Laurie Nash, of course, Ray, a legend in his own time and certainly an amazing character and one that football would have loved and respected throughout his career. And he's a marvellous footballer. I think Tasmanians obviously have got a deep affection for Laurie because he was a player in Tasmania, not only as a footballer but a cricketer, and his career was one of outstanding ability and certainly great contribution. And also, I believe, Ray, it is important to analyse the man himself, because Laurie Nash gave a heck of a lot to football after he finished his playing career. And a lot of people would have used Laurie's talents, asked him for requests to speak at various functions, and they were never turned back. And I can remember Laurie Nash coming over here just recently when he didn't look well to me.
He was in the studio here last year.
And he went out to York Park and impromptued a bit of a speech to the NTFA players at a dinner that they had early in the season. But that was typical of Laurie Nash, and I know that there'd be an enormous amount of people in Tasmania who would have fond memories of this great football legend. And the Australian game of football is built on these people, and it is a very sad day to note the passing of the great LJ. And as he said, he used to see the greatest every morning when he combed his hair. What a great man.
And you got something there from the old Robins?
Well, the Robins, I got a lovely letter from the Robins Association. We try to give everybody a bit of a notification of their old players function, and they sent a lovely letter. And I'd just like to repeat that the old Robins, in their 100th year, their centenary, have got Neil Tresize, Nipper Tresize, and you'd be haunted by him, knowing what a part he played in the great Geelong sides.
Him and Peter Pianto.
Early 50s, eh?
Great player.
Great player, and he's coming over to be the guest speaker at the Old Robins on August the 25th, I think it is. But anyway, it's about that time, Saturday night, and they'll all be having a great time, those Robins.
You've had a great time yesterday, mate. What about your encouragement award?
Well, I saw a tremendous performance by a couple of young players yesterday, Ray, and I'd like to give a pass to each. But anyway, I want to give the encouragement award of this great Nestle's variety of chocolate to a boy called Squires, young Alan Squires, and there's a bit of
just like a
chocolate
pack of cards there, isn't it? We've got a couple more there.
There's a pack of cards there, Ray, and I'm pleased that you're able to help me. I know you've been sick, and I know that you're going to have a bit
I had
of
a couple of
this
nipples of
milky
that, mate, that
bar
kept me
help
going.
you along, and I know it's had the right result. But this is a family of chocolate, and for that boy Squires yesterday, who played a marvellous game, there's one for every occasion. Ray's been on a bit of a rocky road, and I know that you played for the club, but I tell you what, you got a bit of crackle and a bit of milk, smooth milk to keep you going. You're a bit of a chip off the old block, and it's nice to have a bit of variety, a bit of fruit and nuts. So
you're going to need Formby removals to take all that away.
Yes. I'll tell you what, Ray, I'd just like to mention as well, a bit of this dark chocolate goes well with a bit of port, and I had some of Maxie Harris down at the Signal Post last week. He nearly put me to sleep during the game.
Who mixed in all the port?
The port did. It was fantastic, and thanks very much, Max.
And you know, the player is Alan Squires, and the Century Motors Encouragement Award goes to young Mark Pickett. Now, Mark is the younger brother of Barry Pickett. He went to St Pat's. He's been at Launceston now for a couple of years, but Mark, he'd certainly made a major contribution yesterday to Launceston, and there'll be a letter in the mail for you too, to call in at Century Motors at Kings Meadows and pick up your trophy. And just before we leave you, well, you'll be handing out some prizes. There's some berry fruit juice. That'll go with the port and the dark chocolate and everything. That'll keep you asleep too.
That'll go well of a Sunday
and
morning.
there's no sugar for that.
The night, the day after the night before.
Good on you. Let's check the bow. And the Magpies, 18, 19, 127, easily accounted for Launceston, 7-9-51. You remember that the week before, Launceston had a very significant victory over Longford. And so the Magpies, with some of their older and experienced players back in the side, have certainly shown that their premiership hopes are certainly not lost under the coaching of Stephen Nichols. 18, 19, 127 to Launceston, 7-9-51. The goal kickers for Scottsdale, Burke kicked 5, Dennis and Lovegrove 3 each, whilst Barry Pickett was the dual goal kicker for Launceston, he kicked 2. Better players for Scottsdale were Dennis, Bassett, Burke, Lovegrove, Kerrison and McDougall, whilst for Scottsdale, Phillips, Mark Pickett, Cayley and Dargaville, they were their better players, and also Barry Pickett also did play a useful game. 3, 2 and 1 saw 3 to Dennis, 2 to Burke and 1 to Kerrison. NTFA club going out on a winning note by defeating Launceston 16, 25, 121. The major goal kickers for South were Atkins, who kicked 7, Manson 4 and John McCrimmon kicked 6 for Launceston. The better players for South were Atkins, Richardson, Sheen, Manson, Lowe and Skeggs, whilst for Launceston their better players were McCrimmon, Parker, Cook in Devonport tomorrow. The tour is conducted in 4 major sections, ranging from sub-juvenile through to the junior division for under-18s.
Interstate amateur cyclists will gather in Devonport tomorrow to lock horns with Tasmania's top cycling hopes of the future. The 2-day Mersey Mini Tour covers 6 stages and carries over $4,000 in prize money. One of the tour organisers, Dawson Burns, believes the Mersey Valley district is set for an exciting weekend.
The whole district here, Devonport, Latrobe and Sheffield and Railton, are involved because that's where the tour goes. And all these boys are being gathered each year by the Mersey Club Amateur Cycling Club into what's probably the biggest tour for juveniles. Well, it has been said in the world, and there's every chance it is. It's a 2-day tour taking in all grades from 12-year-old right up to the 18-year-olds in their various classifications. And I think it's been proven so often over the years that the boys that have shown so well in the mini tour have gone on to greater things, and names come to mind very easily of Dean Woods, a world champion, Olympic and world champion, who rode the mini tour and won it only 2 years ago. Gary Newand, another gold medalist who showed up very well, not a winner, but he was there. And of course Michael Wilson, our world professional. And
Prospects of further participation in the NTFA final series when they easily won the elimination final, 19 goals 8, 122 to Deloraine 9, 11, 65. Launceston will now meet Georgetown in the first semi-final next weekend.
A chance now for Deloraine, this time through the little fellow and Darren Hewitt. He gets the hand pass over. It's going to go over towards Skipper. Skipper gets on the left boot and drives in towards half forward. Underland, the danger man. Underland on the right boot drives, and he's put it through. It's going to beat quite a few players, but finally again picked up by Squires. He gets it nicely over to his teammate there and Darren Cook. Right foots it towards half forward. The big fellow Dutton gets the hand pass moving over towards Cayley. Cayley, a shot for goal. Magnificent stuff. Scott's going to get on the left boot and drive towards the half-forward line. Thurlow's there, goes high, couldn't mark. The ball has reached the hands of Deloraine going into attack. A long hand pass is going to find its mark. A hand pass is going to go over to Squires. Squires tries to get it out of. It's a fluky kick. It's gone in towards half-forward. McCrimmon's there, dangerous, gets it beautifully over to Darren Cook. Cook on the right boot, and it is good. Sending it in towards the full forward line. Many hands up, nobody able to take the mark.
Last night, the NWFU Board of Management voted 7-4 against the Greater Northern League for season 1987. The vote, taken at a special meeting in Devonport, has caused a major rift between the two northern football bodies. Most football fans in the north expected NTFA and union officials to emerge from last night's special meeting with a Greater Northern Football League competition to rival the statewide league. But the 7-4 union vote in favour of scrapping the proposed league was the surprise decision. Union Secretary-Manager Don Younger was still in a state of shock this morning over the outcome.
At all stages and at all times we knew there were a couple of clubs who were against it, and I've always said I understand that. You've got to understand that clubs on the far western end have a real problem with travel. But I don't think for a moment that we thought the decision that was going to be made would be made. I think had we have had any knowledge that the decision was going to go as it did, that the meeting that was held prior to the meeting with the NTFA last night would have been held days ago. So we could have offered them the courtesy of ringing them up and saying, well, look, chaps, we really are sorry, but the vote's against it. I think the thing that has hurt so much and hurt them so much, and understandably, is they turned up full of enthusiasm in great numbers to be greeted with the decision, and I think that was terribly unfortunate.
It was, in fact, the handling of the situation that upset NTFA officials. Association President David Porter.
Disappointed with the decision and perhaps more disappointed with the way in which it came about. As you know, they had a meeting at 6 o'clock last night to discuss the whole situation. We weren't even notified that that was taking place. When we got there at about 25 past 7, it was all over. Of course, it's common knowledge that the NWFU and the NTFA gave a public commitment to attempting to get a combined northern competition on the road.
TFA first semi. The Blues' chances of victory were enhanced last night when champion forward Robert Dutton declared himself available for the vital clash. Dutton has been under a fitness cloud with an ankle injury. At training last night, the Blues' trump card was confident of a strong team performance against the highly rated Saints.
Had a couple of lapses, but I think we'll be really going well for this Saturday.
Georgetown have a good winning record in wet conditions, and Dutton is hoping for a clear sky when the teams run onto York Park.
Our runners will perform.
Home to defeat Georgetown 11-13-79. To give us his impressions of the game, Graham Wilkinson.
Yes, Ray, well, it was a tremendous effort yesterday by Launceston to defeat Georgetown. The Saints were very confident they could win this game and force their way onward into the final series. And although they were beaten yesterday, they've had a wonderful year. But you've got to take your hat off to Launceston. They had suffered the injury to Squires, one of their top players, prior to the game. They had Dutton under a very severe cloud, and it proved that he was hampered during the game, but he still showed a lot of strength and took a couple of big marks to help them. But they were undermanned, and before the game, having that injury to them would have put them under a lot of pressure. But they were equal to the task, and although Georgetown early in the game provided stiff opposition to them, Launceston's opening burst in that first quarter, where they had all their players really fired up and doing well, just took the honours and really put Georgetown under the pressure that they didn't really want to have, because a young side playing in their first final series sometimes can wilt under this type of pressure. And really, in that first quarter where Launceston got those 6 goals, 4 on the board early, that was where they won the game, I feel, because they had all their players doing particularly well. They started on a very confident note, and really they had their big fellow Walsh in the ruck doing well, and Freeman a great battle. But that half-back line of Georgetown yesterday really applied a lot of pressure to Launceston and held them out in the opening minutes. And with Wilson doing well on the wing, Georgetown looked as if they were going to provide a lot of opposition for the Launceston side. But once Launceston got going, they had all their key forwards doing well. Dutton took a couple of big marks. Scott was doing well in the centre. And up front, they had a good player in McCribbin. McCribbin moved around a lot yesterday and provided just the target for his side, and came out of the game with a lot of honour. He kicked 4 goals and just kicked them at the time when they were really needed. And Georgetown, on the other hand, really had a lot of problems around the goal square area. They had Mansell well down on form, well held by that player Phillips, who did a marvellous job all day for his side, played a flawless game at full-back, and with Bannon put under pressure at centre-half forward, and also Crane. Although Crane did some useful things early in the game, he really wasn't the player that he had been during the home-and-home series, and never really applied much influence to the game.
That goal-to-goal line of Launceston, as the season's progressed, Graham, is looking more and more dangerous with Phillips, Thurlow. You've got Dutton now at centre-half forward, McCrimmon at full forward, and Scott in the centre. It's a very, very dangerous goal-to-goal line.
Well, Scott's a great player, really, Ray, because he burrows in very hard and he kicks the ball such a long way, and that helped Launceston yesterday, because Georgetown's style of play, they didn't kick the ball with much length.
No, that was one of their major downfalls, and we've said that all the year on York Park.
Yes, well, you know, I thought I saw enough the week before in their game that they played that they would have come out yesterday and won this game. I picked them to win, but really Launceston were just too classy for them. Even though they were put under a lot of pressure from Georgetown, there was a lot of physical contact in the game, and especially during that second and third quarter, there was quite a few spiteful incidents.
And I thought Launceston stood up to it pretty well.
Well, I thought they did a tremendous job, really, Ray, because Cayley was one player that really provided a lot of inspiration for his side, because he was clouded from the top of his head to his bootstraps yesterday. He was hit just about everywhere that you could possibly hit him, and he came out with a lot of credit, because he came back onto the ground And when they were under pressure at Launceston, he kicked that marvellous left-foot goal running down from the central area.
Showed a lot of character, didn't
He showed a lot of character. You know, at the lead at quarter time that Launceston set up, Ray, were 28 points in front, was quite substantial.
Yes.
And with Georgetown having that obstacle in front of them, in the second quarter they did an excellent job. They came back into the game and got their 2 or 3 goals to come back to within 7 points at one stage. But then Scott kicked a beautiful goal running out of the centre, a long one that really demoralised Georgetown and just substantiated the Blues' lead at half-time. But really one of the key issues was the failure of a couple of the big guns for Georgetown. Were tremendous players for Georgetown throughout the day, but they really had the inability of support from their teammates to convey the ball then downward to the forward area with some confidence, because they never really had a forward who could leap up and take a big mark and just provide a bit of steadiness in that area. And without that asset, Georgetown were continually under pressure in the field play, and that's where Launceston really won the game. I thought their ruck rovers like Pickett and the other boy there that did a lot of damage for them, in Scott, I've mentioned. They were the boys. Rogers did
played very well,
tremendous game on the wing, Ray, and he had a great battle with Wilson early.
Yes.
But Rogers' second and third quarter were outstanding and played a big part in that winning centre line that Launceston had.
I was surprised at the superiority that Launceston had over Georgetown, particularly in pace.
Well, the pace was evident early, Ray, and that's one of the big difference. That allowed Launceston to get that
and they did it with ease, didn't they?
Well, they did. They made Georgetown look very cumbersome early. Yeah. But as I said, that Georgetown's got great tenacity, a great desire, and on a lot of occasions, this can overcome a speedier opponent. But they just couldn't bottle it up for that to be the main asset all day. And every now and again, Launceston would break away, and having a bloke like Scott, who we've mentioned a lot, but he kicked the ball so long, and the other players of the Launceston side who kicked the ball with depth.
Yes.
It just placed a lot of the pack players behind the play and left it a one-out duel up front. And having McCribbin with his marking power and also Dutton just chipping in every now and again to take a big steadying mark provided Launceston with all that they needed up front. So it was a pretty classy effort by Launceston. That back line, I thought that Phillips played a fantastic game, Ray.
Never made a mistake all day.
Never made a mistake, and I think that Kevin Mansell's a very good player and has had an excellent year. And it's no disgrace to be beaten by a top player, but certainly it was a flawless exhibition by Phillips. He just didn't put a foot wrong all day.
It's a pity. It showed up again yesterday, the lack of experience of Georgetown in the major finals. Their stars, the players around whom the club so revolves, Crane, Shepherd, a few of those other players, their playmakers, they just wilted a little in their final with that extra pressure.
Well, they did, Ray, and you know, you can't buy experience. You have to gain it as you go along, and I just believe that they've got a lot of heart, Georgetown. They'll learn from the game.
Sure.
And, you know, Launceston are a very good football team, and they're well coached and very well led, and they're going to make it difficult for whoever loses this game today, because they're on the march, and having got over the bruising encounter yesterday, that'll toughen them up a little bit, and it'll give them an extra week for blokes like maybe Squires or even big fella Dutton. If Dutton was 100% fit, Launceston would be probably favourites for the flag, but he's definitely not fit. His ankle is troubling him, but he's still got that wonderful heart and ability to take a big mark, and that will provide Launceston with a target up on the forward line. And if you've got mobility around him, perhaps if he doesn't take the big marks, well, then it's giving the opportunity for players like Pickett and these blokes coming down from the centre to pick up the crumbs, and they did that quite well yesterday.
I don't think Robert Dutton has ever played a bad game in a major game.
No, he hasn't, Ray, but he's a top footballer.
He is, but it separates the great players from the really true champions when they can lift themselves in the games in which they're required to.
Yes, it does, and the effort of that boy that went on to Dutton was notable, because we've just wrapped up Dutton. We know what a top player is. That boy's only 16-year-old, Dale Cho, and he was given a mammoth task by his coach to go on and play on that type of player, but he did a tremendous job and showed a lot of maturity, and there's no doubt that boy's going to be a top footballer.
Good on you. So the future it looks all right for Georgetown.
Fantastic, Ray, and they've been a valuable contributor to the performance of the NTFA this year.
And so too have their supporters, because they made that final game yesterday.
They were roaring and hollering. They had a couple of people picked out that weren't too popular out there on the ground, but they came up in force. That's what football's all about.
Sure.
And I was absolutely wrapped, Ray, in when Georgetown came off the ground.
Yes.
They waited at the gate, and then they came off in a unit, and their supporters stood and clapped them and cheered them, and I thought that was an outstanding sign for their club. A
lot of clubs can learn from that, can't they?
Well, it's fantastic. A lot of times you've played and you've been beaten, you walk in disappointed. Sure, you know your supporters are disappointed, and they were disappointed, but they stood there and cheered their team and clapped them, and I think that showed a lot of character, and good on you.
Launceston 15-14 104, defeating Georgetown 11-13-79. Let's see some edited highlights from the game.
Wilson runs along the wing. He kicks the ball deepest in the forward line for his time, but a very timely mark taken there by Michael Bailey.
Big kick towards Bannon. Bannon can't take the one-hander. Here's Fafaro. Fafaro onto the left boot, in towards centre half forward to Crane. Crane, is he going to be paid? He is.
Playing on the wing in front of the grandstand. He kicks the ball towards the half-forward flank, but nobody there except Thurlow, the centre half-back. In charge, where was Barry Pickett? Knocks it clearly to Dutton. The Major's on the run, and through it goes, and a goal is up.
But he recovers well and bursts his way through 3 or 4 players, drives the ball well up towards the 15-metre square. Oh, dropping back, spectacular mark again, Garwood.
As Launceston defending gremminantly by Dargable. It goes out to Bannon. Bannon looking for a player running past with a handball, and he feeds it out to Wilson. Wilson on the run, about his 5th possession, aiming it for goal, and he's chipped it in beautifully.
Drives over towards the centre. Dutton coming from behind, knocks it on beautifully towards Parker. Parker in turn to Scott. Scott with a long kick right up towards the full forward line. Dropping back, does it bounce through? Yes, full points. Great kick by Peter Scott.
Cook comes out of the centre with the ball as he's tackled by O'Sine. He kicks their centre half forward. Marr pushes Dutton out. Handball quickly now, and Cayley's on the run. An open goal. The blonde-headed Cayley, he's put it on the way, and it's through for a Major.
Oh, in front and should have taken a mark. There was McDonald. Ball came to ground. Quickly picked up there for the Blues. Going straight forward is... Oh, great kick there by Pickett. It's gone for a goal, I'm sure.
Then shoots out this long hand pass and finds Dominic Fafaro. Fafaro kicking long up towards the half-forward line. And in front, Bannon brings down his first mark of the day.
Right, ball court brought back into play, and Walsh to take... Oh, Walsh doesn't take the mark. Coming straight through here is McDonald. Lines him up, has a shot at the goals, and a Major. Barry Pickett being quite influential in this game. Goes for the big kick. Torpedo punt towards a Rooster too, right up towards the full forward position. Mark taken.
Shepherd has 1 bounce. He has 2 bounces. Now he has 3 bounces. Then left puts the ball over towards the 15-metre square. Behind was Mansell. Taken here by Fafaro. Dominic Fafaro runs into an open goal and bangs one through for the Saints.
He's got the ball and he kicks it deep towards the full forward line. Up from behind, Mansell hasn't had a touch off hands. Is O'Sine. It dribbles through. It bounces twice and it's through. No one get possession of the ball. Bannon is in on top of the ball, so too is Dutton. Plenty of players there. Coming out with a Scott. Blind turn beautifully on the run. Bang. 1 goal.
And Fafaro got 4 goals, and for Launceston, McCribbin kicked 4 and Cayley kicked 3. And the better players, Ray, yesterday I thought Nadler, Fafaro, Freeman, McDonald, O'Toole and Chugg. For Georgetown, and for Launceston, Phillips, a great exhibition, Pickett, Scott, Walsh, Rogers and Cayley.
Well, this is the most watched segment in the program, Graham. Your encouragement award.
Well,
your
that's
Nestle's
nice.
Encouragement award.
It's nice, Ray. I
look forward to it too, because I get the chocolates.
Yeah, right. Well, I think I need some encouragement myself today.
Yes, and Dazzling Duke yesterday paid the price.
Oh, it's great stuff, that horse. I tell you, it's magnificent. Just like this chocolate, Ray. You know, this is dazzling stuff. And we've got all these flavours, and we've got the most magnificent chocolate range you could ever wish to see. It's a family of chocolate. But we've also got the cooking, we've got the cooking range.
Well, that's for the boys inside, I believe.
Yes, and this is when we said the going gets tough in the finals, and it gets pretty hot in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you some marvellous products over the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to put these cooking products in with the encouragement award to make the ladies at home happy, Ray. And you've got to keep your ladies at home happy.
You would know that.
Well, there you go, Ray. I'm going to put those in. And I'm going to leave those with you because you're a top performer, and I think you'll need those this week.
Well, I know that you're not firing on all 6 cylinders at the moment, Graham, after Dazzling Duke's big win yesterday at Caulfield. And it's a long trip up to Burnie for the boys from the ABC today to do the game up there. Would you like to take that bottle of the tube of berry orange juice? And there's no added sugar, and I'm certain that'll ease the pain a little bit on the way up, if it lasts till you get up there.
Well, I've got a co-partner.
And give it to Wardy and Brad and the boys up there and say that's a compliment to Taz TV.
Well, it's fantastic, this berry. I drink a lot of this, Ray. And the reason
you did last night.
The reason why it's a bit low on the top there is because I've already had a go at it. And I'll be taking that along with my co-partner in crime, Wardy, today. And thanks very much for that,
No problem at all, and I'll see you next week. Now, next week's games, we checked next week's game. We have Launceston, who'll be playing the losers of today's match. That's the clash between Longford and Scottsdale. What a great game that will be at York Park. And, of course, our presentation day will take place next Sunday, in which we present our winners of all the awards. The NTFA and North Western Football Union played tomorrow, and the county for the Heck-Smith Medal and the Wanda Medal taking place tomorrow night. After looking as if they would go through the season undefeated, the prospects of Longford winning this year's premiership have slumped dramatically in recent weeks. They've suffered defeats at the hands of Launceston at Windsor Park, Georgetown at Blue Gum Park, and Scottsdale at York Park last Sunday. Not the sort of mental preparation needed to contest a preliminary final against a confident opponent in Launceston. The Tigers have made changes on almost every line, particularly up forward, where their striking power has fallen away with their key forwards in Brewer and Dunellen sadly out of form. On the other hand, the Blues are playing confidently, and with their strong goal-to-goal line in form and a confidence-boosting win over Scottsdale last Sunday, they will prove formidable opponents. South Launceston coach Bill Hodgson believes this could be the match of the final series, but Longford will not line up as named in the press.
Look, I can't see it. I really can't. OK, they may have pulled the panic button, but I think they've got to look at their performances prior to the finals. They were winning with Tate on the back line and Archer on the back line, and they were winning with Matthews and Upston on the ball, and they're the key players. When we played them this year, they were suspect. They lacked running players, and it was very, very obvious. And on York Park, you've got to have them. There's no point in playing them on the half-back line and on interchange bench. You've got to be on the ball.
Hodgson says the team has lost confidence and should revert to the lineup, which gave them so much success early in the season.
Unless they take a different approach to it and forget about the panicking moves, go back to the existing line.
But it was the Tigers with a brilliant second half, particularly in that third quarter and the final quarter when they came out and won 17-15, 117 to Launceston, 14-12-96. Just prior to that, of course, the under-19s went to South Launceston 6-6-42, defeating Longford 5-10-40. And in the reserves, it was South Launceston again, 12-13-85 to Scottsdale, 9-13-67. But the preliminary final went to the Tigers, 17-15, 117 to Launceston, 14-12-96. And our commentator at the game, Graham Wilkinson.
Yes, Ray, well, what a fantastic game of football we saw at York Park yesterday in that cutthroat final. And, of course, they are pretty harsh situations, preliminary final, where two sides are fighting for the chance of survival. And really, the king of the jungle yesterday, the Lions and the Tigers came out on top. It was a great game. And I thought that with York Park in greasy conditions, it might have favoured the smaller Launceston side. But really, Longford hit hard in the first quarter and established supremacy in the early part with their dominance in the ruck. And that was one of the areas that Launceston really thought, and it was acknowledged that they would hold superiority with the great height of Walsh plus the backup of Dutton to throw onto the ball. But with a great exhibition from Chilcott, he took control at the centre bounce and lifted the hopes of the Tigers early with his ability to win the ball away with clear palming to his smaller players. And with Chugg and also Dakin coming into the game gradually after that first quarter, that was the area that Longford really held the trump card and established that superiority which held them in good stead for the rest of the day. It was a tremendous clash early, of course, the final having a lot of tension, and with the speed of Launceston evident, Longford had to really try to close the game up a little bit. Their half-back line, I thought, did an admirable job early. I thought Upston was a fine player in the half-back flank, and of course the player Upston, of course, winning that Heck-Smith medal last night, along with Cook, showed his class on that half-back flank, and he was a top performer yesterday. I thought with those players working around Chilcott, Longford had a good thing going, and Big Walshy really had a problem on his hand to counter the leap of Chilcott in the centre bounce and to get his smaller players into the game. I thought early that Cook and also Scott did some useful work for the Launceston side, and they had an excellent player on the wing in Buck Rogers. And Horse Stevens across the half-back was an excellent player, and I think that really Horse yesterday played probably his best game for Launceston ever. He gave a terrific exhibition to hold that half-back line together. They had a lot of problems in that area because Longford, when they were breaking away from the centre, had two players to aim for across half forward who were never counted for the whole day. Dunellen was a magnificent player in a half forward flank, and that long looping stride of his and that magnificent left foot threatened danger all day. And when he powered home those goals from way out, as he did with ease throughout the day, Longford got a great lift in confidence. They had also on the bench Brewer, who they brought into the game in the latter half of the performance, and they also had Campaign, and these two players were to play quite a significant part in the proceedings as the day wore on. But early, at quarter time, with the game pretty evenly balanced, where there was only a point of difference, and Longford had the use of the breeze in the second quarter, and this is where they really started to show their power. And really, I thought they frittered away quite a few opportunities in the second quarter to get well and truly on top. But they had some good players up front. Tate got a goal early, and then Dakin started to show his real class and to spear away from the centre, and working with Chug, they started to really penetrate deep into the back line of the Launceston side. And the Tigers looked to be just a little bit classier than Launceston in that second quarter, and were really threatening danger. Of course, Launceston weren't to be outdone. They had some fine players. The Pickett brothers, Barry and the other boy there in Mark, did a great job for them around the pack, and kicked a couple of vital goals for them just when they needed steadying. And of course, up front, they had McCribbin. McCribben's had a marvellous year, and he yesterday showed his real top ability against a tremendous player in Archer, and he outclassed Archer and always was the focal point for Launceston to look for. But he really was the lone star up there. They didn't have anybody else capable of performing well on the forward line. I thought that Gibbons and also Major Dutton, they had a very fiery clash, and although the big fella took some great marks backing into packs and showed his great courage with that serious ankle injury which I believe he's been carrying, he really didn't have the effect on the game that Launceston were hoping for. And that was probably one of the problems for Launceston all day yesterday. They threw him onto the ball in that last quarter, and he did some great work, the big fella, but really the damage had been done by that stage, because it was the third quarter, in my opinion, where Longford really won the game. They were kicking against the breeze, and they came out at the start of the quarter. They got a great goal from Chug and Dakin, and also some magnificent football which they worked together. And with Dunellen kicking big goals from that half-forward line, they just had everything going for them. I thought that Chilcott continued to be the architect. He was a marvellous player for his side yesterday, and one of the impressive things about his performance was, of course, that he's been out for a long time in the latter part of the season with injury, and to come back in yesterday and to cover the area that he did, he not only did the ruck work in the centre bounces, but he was constantly moving down into the back line to support his fellow backmen on that area, but then also going right down into the forward line to contest ruck outs, ruck boundary throw-ins, and he was a great player for his side yesterday, and he lifted his teammates and just brought all of those smaller, medium-sized players of the Longford team into the game. That 6 goals that they kicked in the third quarter was a tremendous effort, and it really broke the heart of Launceston, who were able to manage 3 with the breeze, but they really knew they had their back to the wall at the start of the last quarter. And really, I think that most people would have expected that Longford would have gone well and truly on with the game and really crushed the Blues, because they did have them at their mercy in that third quarter onslaught. Many times, as far as I was concerned, they looked as if they were going to break well and truly away, only to see a bad kick into the forward line let Launceston back in, and they were defending grimly. Phillips and the other boy that I mentioned, Horse Stevens, did a great job for them and were really strong players throughout the day. But at the start of the last quarter, there was a sensational start to the quarter proceedings, because Walsh, Gold, and then McCribbin added another one, and all of a sudden there was just that sense of wobbles coming in the Longford machine. And when Pickett got another one and Launceston had kicked 3 in 3 minutes, there was chinks beginning to appear in the armour of the Longford side. And then McCribbin got another one. 4 goals in 5 minutes was fantastic football and had the crowd roaring, because it was then that most people thought, with that ability to come back, that perhaps Launceston were going to steal the game. But Longford steadied. They got all their players back into position. Campaign did some great work, got a goal for them to steady them. and he was quite a good player for Longford yesterday when he came onto the ground and taking over from Hume, who'd started in the centre. He supplied a lot of drive, had great depth in his kicking, and he was the player that really got them rolling in the last quarter. I thought also then Dunellan's going onto the ball when Chilcott had to leave the field, and also they'd lost the other boy there in the centre in Dakin. And these two players going off the field disorganised Longford, but to their credit, they came back. Gibbons onto the ball, and they started the roller game. Prua, a very valuable player, although I didn't think he should be on the ground because he was hampered by his knee, but he proved me wrong anyway because he kicked 4 goals in a great exhibition and was a very valuable player just with his marking power on the forward line to lend support and just give that bit of steadiness. But it was a marvellous game. It was a tremendous final, and I believe that Longford are well and truly back in business. I think that they're going to go into the game next week favourites if both Chilcott and Dakin are capable of taking their place in the side fully fit. So it was a magnificent effort, Ray.
John Williams has been up over the last 3 or 4 weeks looking at film of Longford's performances, and he made a statement on Monday, I think it was, Monday or Tuesday, which I thought was very significant, explaining Longford's poor form in recent games. And he brought up the fact that the bye, since the merger of the clubs, East and City, that the bye has proved detrimental to Longford. They haven't had that hard football, except in the last 3 to 4 weeks. They've had those tough matches, and this has got them match hardened. And I think on their performance yesterday, when they regained confidence, that theory of John's may have something to it.
Well, I don't go along with that,
You
Ray.
don't,
I think that you know that the week's rest shouldn't, at the end of a season.
No, this is towards the, they've missed about 4 matches through the bye, Longford. Same as the other sides, of course.
Well, I think so, but I mean, if you've got a bye, you only miss 1 game.
Yes, I know, but it does take away your trend. I mean, a team may be just developing form, all of a sudden have the week rest.
Well, fair enough. I mean, that's his theory, and,
It is,
and he's
yes.
entitled. He's the coach.
And I think it's something was proved yesterday.
Well, they did a good job. They came back, and they had to come back yesterday. I mean, if they had lost yesterday, all the theories in the world wouldn't have done any good at all. But the fact is that they showed yesterday the reason why they won about 15 games fairly on the trot, I think it was, in the first part of the year. They've got a very classy side, and the players who motivate them really came to the fore yesterday.
Certainly.
And they really contributed greatly. Chug and Dakin were magnificent players in the last half of the game, and really were the players that were unable to be countered by Launceston. They didn't have anybody really that could counter the effect that they were having on the game.
And the fact remained, when the team was named on Thursday night, Bill Hodgson, I asked Bill on Friday, and he said that he didn't think the team would line up. It did, and all those moves proved most effective.
Well, they did. I didn't think Hume would start in the centre, but he did, and he did a reasonably job, although I thought Scott was a pretty good player early in the game. But really, they came out and they did the job, and I think one of the biggest surprise packet was Chilcott. He's been a good player, but that was a first-class exhibition of ruck work he gave yesterday, and just gave an armchair ride to those smaller players away from the centre, and that's where Longford had it all going for them. And with Tate and Dunellan kicking the ball, Dunellan kicked the ball as long as you wish to see anybody yesterday.
In the conditions too.
In the conditions, and was a magnificent contributor to his side.
But the fact that Chilcott completely took Walsh out of the game in that first half, it was a great effort by him.
Yes, the big fella, they tell me, had a shoulder injury, and that's unfortunate because his height and ability as a ruckman would have been invaluable to Launceston, and just showed how significant it is to have a man controlling the centre bounce. Chilcott, as I said, just hit the ball down beautifully to players of the calibre of Dakin and the other boy Chug, and they just swept the ball away from the centre and had it going Longford's way very easily. And that made it very difficult for Launceston to counter.
Stage is set for a big one next week.
Be a fantastic game, Ray. A really top-class game of football next week.
Final scores at York Park yesterday saw Longford 17-15, 117 to Launceston 14-12, 96. Let's see some edited highlights from the game. Keane, the fullback for Launceston, favouring the outer side. A good kick too. Well towards the centre, in front. Mark taken by Hume.
Punching the ball away as Walsh gets it over to Scott. Scott up through the centre of the ground. Is there anyone there? No, over the top of his teammate. Players coming in, running for the ball. Picked up here by was Scott once again, streaming down through centre half forward towards the goals. Is it going to bounce through? It's going to go all the way, and a goal to the Blues. Up high was Dutton, couldn't get the punch away. Cook this time gets onto the right boot, nearly gets away with it, doesn't. Termine back over towards Cook. Cook's out in the half-forward flank by himself. Gets his kick in towards the full forward position. Coming out and taking the mark here is Pickett. Moves in As he shot at goal, the goal umpire stands back and says you're very accurate, and another goal to the Blues.
Back in the centre, ball started, play started once again. Oh, Rolly Chug got high, but only went as far as Rogers. Rogers will drive over towards the outer side. Not a good kick, but it's over to, oh, good mark. Strong mark taken there by Upston.
And lucky Richard Arts didn't take the mark because his teammates taken the mark at centre-half back. Now the ball coming down through the centre of the ground. We're looking for Lashman. Lashman uses his weight. Oh, good mark there taken for the Blues. And it's taken by Michael Stevens.
And Lashman in turn to Upston. Upston in turn to Hume. The Tigers are rolling. Hume with the right bit up towards centre-half forward, looking for Tate. Great mark, Tate. Well, over towards the wing position. Oh, Parker dropped the easiest of marks, but it's been taken here by Cook. Hand passes back to Squires. Squires with a pass right up towards the full forward line. And McCrimmon takes the mark 25 metres out from goal and directly in front. Came away nicely. Still retains possession. Good play by Gibbons. Hand passes to Murphy. Murphy in turn to Rolly Chug, doing good work. Chug kicking short towards Tate. Oh, Tate, one-hander, great mark.
This is Jamie Chug with the ball now, streaming down through centre-half forward, going in towards full forward. Can the mark be taken? No, it's not. It's tapped over the back. Donnellan gets the handball over to Murphy. Murphy to the right boot and a goal.
Dutton a long way from goal. But he'll certainly send the Blues deep into attack, which he does. Is dropping in the 15-metre square. The pack. Oh, great mark. Judgment taken by McCrimmon. Upston. Back taps it towards Dakin. Dakin up towards centre-half forward. Von Stiglitz controls the ball nicely, then shoots out the hand pass to Tate. Tate from about 40 metres out has a shot up towards the full forward line. And what's he done? 4 points to the Tigers.
Now, McCrimmon already has 2 goals for the Blues today. 35 metres out from goal. Moves in, favours the drop punt kick. Gio, it's a good-looking kick. It's going to be another goal to the Blues.
Lashman in turn to Upston. Upston rolling down this broadcasting wing. Left foots the ball up towards the centre wing position. Taken, though, nicely by Dakin again. Hand passes towards Chilcott. Chilcott in turn to Donnellan. Donnellan a long kick from the half-forward line. Kicks long up towards the goal square and through for a great goal to the Tigers.
To Pickett, to Parker. Parker gets the handball over, goes over towards Barry Pickett. Barry Pickett, 45 metres out from goal, lines them up, and a great kick, Barry Pickett. Ball hits the ground. Here's Wally Walsh, handballs it out, goes straight to Lashman. Lashman, a right foot snap, and a goal.
Donnellan with his 6 goals was a fantastic player for the Longford side, and Pruitt kicked 3 valuable ones when he came onto the ground. And McCrimmon was a tremendous performer for Launceston with 6 big ones, and Mark Pickett got 3 as well. And the better players, as far as I was concerned, Ray, were Upston, Donnellan, Dakin, Chug, Roland, and that's Jamie, Chug as well, and Chilcott and Ford. And for Launceston, McCrimmon, Stevens, Cook, Phillips, Pickett, Rogers and Swain.
Well, we're very fortunate to have in the studio today. It's our presentation day, of course, and there's footballers from all over the northern part of the state. And 2 of the boys last night who figured so promptly in the voting, our dual Hecksmith medalists in Darren Cook and Malcolm Upston, we're pleased to have them in the studio. And both were opponents yesterday. Mal, as the victor, it was a big return to form for you.
It's about time, Ray.
What do you think was the major contributing factor?
Tim Chilcott. Getting it out of the centre boost our confidence, and that's where we've been lacking the last few weeks. I mean, we've got good big players, but not good big tapping ruckman.
And I thought also the return to form of Roland, he was Rolly Chug, and Lyndon also, particularly in that first half, was very constructive.
Oh, yes, my word. Dake always puts in. You can always rely on him to burrow in and get 20 kicks a game. Very reliable player.
Did you think the changes that were made on Thursday night would stick going out on the ground yesterday?
I knew that if John made changes, that they would, whatever was in the paper, that was what's going to happen, because we talked about it a few weeks ago about unsettling the side, and everyone had to know what position they were going to play. So on Friday morning when I saw the paper, I knew I was where I was, and everyone else did too.
Particularly on that half-back line. How do you think lining up on that in that position?
Well, John had his reasons to put me there. He explained it, and that's fair enough. And I don't particularly like the back line. It's a big chore, and I don't envy any back line player because it's a big responsibility, and I don't know how they could really enjoy it, actually.
Because you like to use your pace, don't you, on the flanks and particularly around the ground?
Yeah, I like to run around the open spaces. I love playing on the wing, on the ball, basically because I can run around and create space and use the ball a bit more.
But you took a couple of nice marks earlier. That must have given you confidence.
It took me a while to settle in, Ray. The first quarter I was a bit shaky, but after that I think I settled in okay.
Darren, it must have been a bitter pill of disappointment for you after the side started off so well.
That's right, Ray. It was very disappointing to finish up like we did. I thought we could have done a little bit better than that. But
Well, now that the season has finished up, what injury was Tony Walsh carrying yesterday?
as far as I know, I think he was pretty right.
Really?
He may have been carrying one. He's
Well,
got
certainly
a
down on
big
form.
heart.
He was certainly down on form, wasn't he?
Oh, I think he was trying, but, you know, he might have just had one of those days.
But particularly from a rover's point of view, your point of view, to bring that ball out of the centre, you were looking for Tony to give you first use of that ball.
Oh, for sure, yes. I think the opposing ruckman did a good job. I think he was just running in at him and was trying to just take Wally out of the game, which he did.
Darren, Launceston would be very pleased with their year, really, in knowing that you lost all those players from last year's premiership team, or the team that played off in the finals for the last 2 or 3 years, and bringing all the young boys in the circumstance has been a marvellous performance. You know, when you've got players like Squires, say Nick Keane, Rogers, those boys, they have been good contributors for Launceston. The foundation's there for a good side next year.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right. From the way we started off the year to now, you know, everyone's just matured so much, and, you know, it's been a good, even team effort for most of the year after we got going.
How many of those players will you hold, do you think, Darren?
I'm not too sure. No idea, really. I think most people are happy there. It's a good club at Launceston, so I think, you know, most of them will probably be around.
What about one, Darren Cook? After you started off with Devonport, came to Launceston, had success?
I'm a bit unsure. I'll probably be down there too, I reckon. I'll just see what happens in the summertime, but I'll probably be there, I reckon.
Does statewide football hold any attraction to you?
For sure, I'd like to have a go at it. You know, it's something I think everyone that should have a go at, but work commitments limit me a little bit, and so I'll just have to see how I feel.
Mel, going back to Longford's forward line yesterday, it must have been tremendous to see players like Denellen, Tate, and even having Brewer on the bench to come on and take the big marks around the ground and give you something to aim for. Tate's been a very handy player for you. He started off half-back and now gone to half-forward. He's providing a lot of something for you to aim there with his speed.
My word, Mark Tate's one of the best players you could ever come across. If he plays state league next year, which I think he probably will, he'll dominate that competition as well. However, I don't think he played up to his ability yesterday. He dropped a lot of marks.
He hasn't done so for about the last 2 or 3 weeks, has he? Not the ability we know he possesses.
That's right. He very seldom drops a mark. He'll mark 4 out of 5 consistently, but yesterday he had a bit of an off day, but nevertheless he still contributed around the packs. He kicked long.
He contested too, didn't he, Mel?
That's right, and which he does all the time.
Yeah.
Something he learns from playing the back line, but he's a top player.
Now, what about the future of Malcolm Upston? Mel, you're an old Deloraine man. There's a bloke out there in the studio there that went to school with you. I won't tell you who he is, but he'll probably introduce himself to you again after. Yeah. But you went to Deloraine, then went to Hobart, and back with the Tigers.
Well, I started off with Longford, playing with Longford, because Deloraine back in those days weren't with the NTFA, and I played a few seasons there, and then I got transferred my job to Hobart. So I played 2 seasons with Hobart, and it was just a natural progression when I got transferred back up here to play with Longford.
What's the further progression?
I don't know yet, Ray. I don't even know whether I'll play next year. We'll just see how we go on next Saturday and see what unfolds in the summer, like Darren.
Speaking of next Saturday, you must be fairly confident now. You're back to top form.
Without being conceited, I think we'll win that game next week. Scottsdale definitely put it up to us, but I think Longford now have got the confidence and the real drive to win that game next week.
Darren, could we ask you your selection as a neutral selector?
I think I'd have to go for Longford, yeah, but I think it'll be a really hard match. I think it'll be the team that really, puts in the most on the day.
Well, we thank you both for your contribution you've made to football, NTFA football this year, and heartiest congratulations on your dual success last night. And we'll be making some presentations to you later on in our World of Sport program. Thanks very much, Malcolm Upston and Darren Cook. And the most sought-after award on presentation day, of course, is the Graham Wilkinson Nestles Encouragement Award. Who's going to cop it this week?
Well,
he wouldn't even name the player last week, did we?
First I'm going to say it's that young fella Gray, the man in grey, a tremendous little player for Longford, and a player of the future. Yeah. He's going to be a real star, this bloke. And I think that I'm mentioning this for Danny Clark down the coast. He's always watching this segment, and there for you, Danny, that we're going to name the player first up, mate. Now, we're going to talk about bacon, Ray, because Nestles, we've talked about chocolate, and now we're into the cooking, into the real heat of the season, and this is where you start really cooking. And these are the choc bits. You want to get hold of them. They're tremendous. You can put them on your cakes, you can put them on your cookies, and they've got some cooking chocolate here. This is fantastic stuff, Ray. This is the family of Nestles, mate. The family of Nestles. And that's for cooking.
They tell me to put pep in your steps.
This is, it'll do everything. It'll do everything for you. And when you're really hot, you need these melts. Now, you can make your own chocolate. This is Nestle's chocolate in here, Ray. You can make it, you know, the molds. This is an unpaid minute commercial, you know. And we're going to go the whole lot, Ray, because when you're on fire, you want to really get going into it. Now, they're the melts, and for drinking, you want to have a good look at this, Ray. This is what you should be drinking. And of a Saturday night after you work so hard, and you do work hard up here, you're the hardest working bloke I know. You do a fantastic job. No, I'm trying to work for you. I'm trying to convince those blokes out there the great job you do. Get some cocoa. It's fantastic for cooking. It's fantastic for drinking.
Well, what about sharing up between Mel and Darren?
Well, there are. There's some milk for Darren and for Mel. And
no, take the wife over the cooking chocolate, mate. You want that?
To the victor goes the spoils, right? So there's some cooking chocolate for it, and there's some cocoa for you, Darren. They'll put
The William Leach Medal is the highest individual honour in Tasmanian football. The footballer adjudged the fairest and best for 1986 in the Tasmanian Football League by its umpires will have the added honour this year of being the first winner in the inaugural year of the Cascade Bogues Statewide League. As the season progressed, the early favourites, Clarence, dominated the competition, and it wasn't until round 7 that they suffered their first defeat. Round 7 also signalled the emergence of the new premiership favourites. Sandy Bay began an unbeaten 13-match run that sees them in this Saturday's TFL Grand Final. A vital part of the build-up to the 86 Grand Final is the awarding of the Holden William Leach Medal. Live from the Rest Point Federal, ABC Sport has pleasure in presenting the vote count for the 1986 Holden William Leach Medal. Your host for tonight's count, ABC Sport's editor for Tasmania, Neville Oliver.
And a very good evening to you wherever you may be in Tasmania, and welcome to the 1986 Holden William Leach Medal. What a magnificent night it's been here at the Rest Point Casino so far. Brian Eade, the General Manager of the TFL, has already counted the ones and the twos. Are the votes worth 1 and 2? And we'll update that situation for you in just a moment. But I must say that it has been a tremendous night with Tony Pantano entertaining the very big crowd, almost 400 people here at Rest Point. And, well, it's just in half an hour's time, or a little under half an hour's time, we'll know exactly who has won the coveted William Leach Medal for season 1986, as Peter G said in the build-up, the inaugural year of state football. Well, let's have a look at the situation now with the ones and the twos counted. And there's a runaway leader on the board, Andy Bennett, the captain and coach of the Sandy Bay Football Club. And I'm really just starting to wonder what a job Andy has made for himself, because he's already polled in 8 games. He's polled 5 twos and 3 ones. So time running out, for, as far as Andy's concerned, to get the votes worth 3. He's followed then by John Saunders, Davies and Armstrong on 8, with Wade from Hobart on 7. So we can expect the people with the lesser votes to improve as they pick up the votes worth 3. Let's now talk to the General Manager of the TFL, Brian Eade. Brian, you've been under enormous pressure, I know. How many people in the auditorium so far this evening have asked you just who has won the medal for 1986?
Well, of course, Neville, I count a lot of them. It'd be 372 people here and 371 of ours.
I must tell you at home that in order for us to prepare the William Leach Medal, Brian gives us a list of about a dozen players who will poll very well so that we can prepare the videotape segments on their season. And I said to Brian at the start of the evening, is the winner among that list of people that I've got here? And he said, no, you've missed him. So I said, quick, will you write it on for me? By this time, John Lapham, our producer, had fallen in a heap on the floor, so he wrote the name down, which was Brian Eade. So he started our night off in spectacular fashion. TFL statewide football has seen a magnificent year, with Sandy Bay winning 13 games coming into this week's final. But right now, let's have a look at some of the people who have made the season, and we're going to now look at 8 marks of the year.
Benson has a shot for goal.
Fox is there, and Wayne Fox, the incredible mark, one hand, jostling with Philip White, and this man who is unbeatable at full forward.
Adams will go from behind and grab a beauty. Got Adams. One goal to his credit.
Lewis has half it out, look upfield, looks for Jewel. Oh, good mark there. Great mark, Alistair Lynch. Got up high there, over his opponent is Jewel, and pulled in a good one.
This is better teamwork from the Magpies. Up it goes to full forward, behind, Pierce, what a mark! Top stuff, the Magpies, from defence to forward line.
Walsh could nearly kick that. Going to fall short. Millhouse the leader from behind, and Carey Millhouse, fine mark.
See that coming, had his name written all over, as they say in the classics, John.
I was able to get his name out before he took it because it was obvious that Millhouse had the sit.
Over the top he goes to Lewis. Thumps one into half forward. Adams in the middle of the pack. Got the mark! What a grab! Scotty Adams! 40 metres out from goal. And he is a tired warrior, is Scott Adams.
It was that big sprint that took it out of him.
From behind, Gourley. Oh, and in front of him, Bays. Mark of the day there. Oh, a pair of the best hands in the league. Lovely tap from Boyer to Armstrong. Fox from behind. Baldy Fox magic. Oh. When the going gets tough, Baldy is the man who usually gets going in these situations.
So there we are, some of the people who made season 1986 such a success. And right at the end of the program, by the way, during the program we're going to show you the goals of the year. Right at the end of the program we're going to select the goal of the year, the mark of the year. Undoubtedly it will not meet your approval, but we're going to show it to you anyhow. Right, now let's get on with the votes, with Bennett leading on 13, Saunders, Davies and Armstrong, well, not quite nipping at the heels, are they, back on 8? Let's ask Brian Eade to start the count of the votes worth 3.
Thanks, Neville. 5th of April, round 1. Hobart versus South Launceston. South Launceston, David Gibson. New Norfolk versus North Hobart. North Hobart, Phil Bays. Clarence versus Glenorchy. Clarence, Graham Honeybell. North Launceston versus Sandy Bay. Sandy Bay, David Chapman. 12th of April, round 2, Sandy Bay versus Hobart. Hobart, Craig Hoyer. North Hobart versus North Launceston. North Hobart, David Noble. Glenorchy versus New Norfolk. New Norfolk, John Saunders. South Launceston versus Clarence. Clarence, Steen Kremaskotham. 19th of April, round 3, Hobart versus North Hobart. North Hobart, Lee College. New Norfolk versus Clarence. Clarence, Greg Farquhar. Sandy Bay versus South Launceston. Sandy Bay, Scott Parsons. North Launceston versus Glenorchy. Glenorchy, Roland Curley. That concludes the voting to the end of the 3rd round.
Thanks very much, Brian. Well, still nobody yapping at the heels of Andy Bennett, that gap not closed, as we now take a look at some of the stars who will figure very prominently in the voting for the 1986 Holden William Leach Medal.
In the 1980s, Clarence recruiting staff have often looked to the north of Tasmania to bolster their side. The recruiting of Darren Shepherd follows that policy, and with similar results. Not only is he well to the fore in best and fairest counts, but also represented Tasmania in season 86.
First blood to the Clarence side. Adams and Spearman. Curly over the top, floats in for it. Shepherd's quick. The crumb gatherer. Is he accurate? He is. Number 3, Darren Shepherd.
Going in was Jewel, gets a hand pass out to Darren Shepherd. Well done, Jewel. Well done, Shepherd.
North Hobart's Bradley Plain is anything but that. He's one of the many outstanding youngsters who are destined to lead the TFL statewide league into the 90s.
Coming out to try and take the mark. Off hands. Plain keeps the ball in play, or does he? Plain. Over the shoulder. Not taking the mark, but he draws the man. Now over the top of McQueen. Back to McQueen, it comes from Bays. Plain intercepts and kicks the goal. In front, who takes it off the pack? A great effort there, Bradley Plain.
In the eyes of ABC football commentators, Chris Fagan has had an outstanding year. He was voted ABC Radio's Footballer of the Year. Possibly not the eye-catching player that stands out in the minds of umpires, he is perhaps cast more in the role of being totally effective, especially within 50 metres of goal. He's been a major contributor to the success of Sandy Bay this year.
2 for Chris Fagan.
As one of North Launceston's more experienced players, Steve Mackerel has made a good debut in statewide football. As the Robins improve in the second year of the statewide league, as they surely will, Mackerel will be one of the players they'll be looking to as a match winner.
Here's a chance. Young taps it through there. Could be a free kick to Henderson. He gets it to Mackerel. It's there. Brandy's the call. It comes from Mackerel, who doesn't let him down.
After a couple of seasons on the mainland, John Klug returned to Glenorchy during the season, and very soon was again thrilling Hobart fans with the form and uncanny judgment that had led VFL talent scouts to his door. A major contributor to Tasmania's showing in this year's Foster's Shield, the TFL is fortunate to have John back.
Klug, but a very deceptive player and a very talented player.
Well, there's no doubt about it. We certainly have some magnificent players in the statewide league. And, of course, those players figuring prominently in the voting. Let's have a look at the situation now. 12 of the votes worth 3 have been counted by Brian, and Andy Bennett leads by just 2. So I wasn't quite right with the mathematics. John Saunders picking up to 11, just 2 behind. And that roar coming from the New Norfolk table. And then the group on 3. On 8 votes of the group of 3 there, Darren Davies, Matthew Armstrong, Lee College and Roland Curley. The maths still aren't all that much good, are they? Okay, people getting very involved here now with the excitement of the night as we call on Brian to give us another 12 votes worth 3.
Thanks, Neville. 25th of April, round 4. Glenorchy versus Hobart. Hobart, Wayne Pettit. Clarence versus North Launceston. Clarence, Peter Rewalt. Sandy Bay versus North Hobart. Sandy Bay, Andy Bennett. South Launceston versus New Norfolk. New Norfolk, Mike Honeybell. 17th of May, round 6. New Norfolk versus Hobart. New Norfolk, Gary Williamson. Sandy Bay versus Clarence. Clarence, Graham Honeybell. Glenorchy versus North Hobart. Glenorchy, Gary Linton. North Launceston versus South Launceston. North Launceston, Tony Brand. 24th of May, round 7. Hobart versus North Launceston. Hobart, Craig Hoyer. New Norfolk versus Sandy Bay. Sandy Bay, Gary Henderson. North Hobart versus Clarence. North Hobart, Pat Bailey. South Launceston versus Glenorchy. Glenorchy, Roland Curley. That concludes the voting to the end of round 7.
Well, you can probably tell by the roar that went up from the crowd there. Andy Bennett, certainly very popular with the Sandy Bay Brigade here, and there's a lot of supporters here. And they're still going hard at it. No votes just yet. And, of course, as Roland Curley picked up his tally, there was also a roar over there from Glenorchy. And from the sound of that noise, it's going to be a great grand final, isn't it? They're really just getting warmed up with Glenorchy versus Sandy Bay here. But, of course, many, many players still in with a chance to win the 1986 Holden William Leach Medal. As I mentioned, 1986 will go down in history as the year 2 teams entered the TFL. First time that 2 northern teams participated, and right now let's pay tribute to North Launceston and South Launceston.
For many years, administrators, players and supporters have agonised over the rights and wrongs of statewide football, and it seemed that the tough decision of how and when to introduce the concept was easier to put to one side than put into operation. Clarity of thinking and dynamic action stemmed from the drubbing handed out to Tasmania by Queensland in the Foster's Shield final of 1985. And suddenly, League President John Bennett and Tasmanian football administrators were faced with the reality of improve the competition or fade from sight completely. The disgrace of that loss in Queensland was the catalyst for change and statewide football. 1986 saw the initial move with 2 sides entering the TFL from Launceston. The team selected by new President David Smith and the board were North Launceston and East Launceston, who through season 86 were to amalgamate with City South to become South Launceston. The Launceston teams have found matches hard to win, but consistently improved through the year to show that next season they'll be tough opponents for whichever team they play. North and South Launceston are served by many good players, and some to catch the eye of umpires in voting for this year's Holden William Leach Medal include Tony Brand and Ken Jordan from North Launceston, and Jeff Dunn and Darren Trevina from South Launceston. Whilst North Launceston and South Launceston have been the trailblazers in season 86, fans around the state now look forward with great anticipation to next year and full statewide football, when Devonport and the Burnie Hawks take the number of competing teams to 10. In season 86, undoubtedly a major highlight was the admission of 2 new teams, North Launceston and South Launceston.
Well, it certainly was fantastic to see South and North come in. Who will ever forget the first week of the season when East Launceston, as it then was, won their first game? Didn't that create a buzz? And of course, North Launceston putting it together the further the season went on. We wish them well in season 1987. This is all about the winner of the 1986 Best and Fairest Medal though in the TFL. Let's have a look at the leaderboard now, and we see Andy Bennett occupying that top spot. He's been there all night. John Saunders and Roland Curley closing the gap, and Craig Hoyer coming into contention. I assure you there are still plenty of votes to come and plenty of possibilities as we go over to Brian now for some more votes.
Thanks, Neville. 31st of May, round 8, Clarence versus Glenorchy. Clarence, Graham Honeybell. Sandy Bay versus North Launceston. Sandy Bay, Robbie Johnston. North Hobart versus New Norfolk. North Hobart, Darren Davies. South Launceston versus Hobart. Hobart, Wayne Fox. 7th of June, round 9, New Norfolk versus Glenorchy. Glenorchy, Bill Dunn. Clarence versus South Launceston. Clarence, Steen Cremascotham. North Launceston versus North Hobart. North Launceston. Tony Brand. Hobart versus Sandy Bay. Hobart. Craig Hoyer. (21st of June, round 10. North Hobart versus Hobart. Hobart. Craig Hoyer. Glenorchy versus North Launceston. Glenorchy. Dean Coleman. New Norfolk versus Clarence. Clarence. Des James. South Launceston versus Sandy Bay. Sandy Bay. Michael Francis. That concludes the voting to the end of round 10.
Thanks for that, Brian. Well, a great roar going up as Craig Hoyer improved his position. The Hobart supporters certainly loving those votes as they came out. Well, earlier in the program we had marks of the year. Right now, let's go to the 6-pointers, the goals of the year.
Plane falls over, but it doesn't matter because Gooley was there from the boundary line. He's had one bounce, runs to within 20 metres. That's a lovely shot at goal from Gooley. Pearce, lovely pickup, nowhere to go. Suckling feeds back for Kluge from the boundary line. Yes, brilliant goal.
Kick in the direction of Pearce. Pearce from behind. Frame is there. Wallace, soccer style off the ground. What's he done? I believe he's got it. He has. Brilliant goal, Peter Wallace. Really, that was an opportunist goal and quick thinking by Peter Wallace.
Attempted by Goulay, not effective. Plain does well. Butters up after his own handball. Twists, turns. How do you like this for a piece of play? Goal. Oh, magnificent.
Spearman manages to get out of trouble. Hand pass from Lockley to Pearce is good. Pearce has a bounce. They should get the head up and go the short pass. He looks for Gillam. Gillam can give it back to Pearce, who's continued up the ground. Good football, David Pearce. Can you finish off with a goal? Yes, he can. And that's the David Pearce the Glenorchy supporters want to see. His first goal.
Right now for Clarence. Neville. The Roos are away. Alan Neville has got a panic. He's being told he's clear. He's got another 3 or 4 bounces if he wants them. Doesn't need them.
Down to Stuart McMillan. Twist, turns. Millhouse from behind. Ball not touched yet. Now Millhouse has it. Tries the impossible kick over his shoulder. How it was the impossible. And what a goal from Gary Millhouse. No wonder he's been congratulated by Neil Hodder and other teammates. Fantastic goal.
Suckling. As it touched off the boot, almost dragged in by Lovell. Kick off the ground, brilliant goal! Curly, Maradona-esque from 1.5 metres out. Controlled it with the right boot, hammered it home with the left.
Well, there you go, you see. The last goal, probably the appropriate one, the year of the World Cup, and obviously Roland Curley spent a fair bit of time watching that on ABC television. That was a great goal, wasn't it? Well, anyhow, since we were last talking to you about the leaderboard, just look at the situation. Isn't it getting interesting? The Sandy Bay people have been a bit quieter of late. Andy Bennett still in front on 16. Craig Hoyer, 15. The man that stood here 12 months ago making a bit of a charge, Graham Honeybell. And then Roland Curley, John Saunders and Darren Davies. So it's very, very tight at the top of the leaderboard as once again we go to Brian Eade.
Thanks, Neville. 28th of June, round 11. Hobart versus Glenorchy. Hobart. Scott Wade. New Norfolk versus South Launceston. New Norfolk, Gary Hinchin. Sandy Bay versus North Hobart. Sandy Bay, Michael Francis. North Launceston versus Clarence. North Launceston, Roger Henderson. 5th of July, round 12. Clarence versus Hobart. Clarence, Darren Shepherd. New Norfolk versus North Launceston. New Norfolk, Mark Triffett. Glenorchy versus Sandy Bay. Sandy Bay, Andy Bennett. South Launceston versus North Hobart. South Launceston, Jeff Dunn. 12th of July, round 13. Hobart versus New Norfolk. Hobart, Craig Hoyer. Clarence versus Sandy Bay. Sandy Bay, Andy Bennett. North Hobart versus Glenorchy. Glenorchy, Gary Linton. South Launceston versus North Launceston. North Launceston, Scott Curran. That concludes the voting to the end of round 13.
Well, I think the noise you can hear just a moment ago were the fingernails hitting the floor. Bob Gozzi, the president of Sandy Bay, just jumped up and hit the lights. They had to drag him down. And then no sooner is that roar finished than Craig Hoyer picks up another 3. So it's very, very tight indeed. We'll update that situation for you in a moment. But right now, let's pay tribute to the window front of Tasmanian football, the state team. Brilliantly coached by Gary Davidson this year, Tasmania lost their first game, unluckily, to the ACT. But now let's savour the flavour as Tasmania very easily dispatched New South Wales and Queensland at North Hobart.
Ball to Cremascothan. Wouldn't bounce for him, but he's still battling Steen Cremascothan. Snap won't score. Fox being wrestled. Oh, what a brilliant mark. And really, in those one-out duels, showing Pearce the way.
Almost a one-hander. Greg Farquhar, skipper this afternoon, with Dunn off the scene. And a fine grab at half-back. Desperado is Atkins. Farquhar, safe in defence. Spearman over the top. Cremascothan. Half-back. Target Honeybell. Pearce from behind. Has it. Short pass. Fox takes his time. Pearce will handball if he can pick it up. Knocked off the ball. Goes back towards Gleeson. Fended off him to Pearce. Pearce to Adams. Not another one, surely. Adams kicks long and a goal. College. Revolt doing support. Good play. Atkins onto Smith. Long kick to full forward. Good use of the body by Fox, and the man who was in the unfortunate position, Wingate, of not being able to muscle up with Mr. Fox. Bustled out of position. Fox will go into the square. Pritchard's just kicked a goal. He's just kicked another one. Loose defence by New South Wales.
Adams from behind, can't be his opponent in O'Neill. Shepherds allows David Pearce to pick up the ball. He wants to get the hand pass out to Fox, who in turn gives it to Adams. Good play, Fox. Adams shot for goal, has gone through to the delight of the large crowd here.
Comes in, he gets one in the back. Play on now, advantage will be called. Pass from Dunn, a beauty to Fox. Fox with McGarry on, handballs off nicely to Dunn, who kept moving. Up to full forward, Adams!
Spearman, he can cop him hard. Looks for Pearce. The leaper from behind. David Pearce, magnificent. Name on the ball, but he still got there and got it. Now uses the ball well to Ling. She'll give it to Noble. Ignores that opportunity. Instead goes a long kick. Adams from behind. Ball comes loose to Klug. He's not quick enough to get it. Adams gets the hand pass out to Seddon. Shot for goal. What's he done from the boundary line? He has put it through. And a good goal, Michael Seddon. Honeybell and Guy. Well, they get the ball out of the centre. Now Tasmania can through Seddon. Pearce, did he nudge? Did he push? The umpire says no. Hand pass onto Noble. Gets around the opponent with ease. Shot at goal by David Noble. Puts it straight through. Tasmania responded very quickly with 2 goals.
Last year's runaway winner of the William Leach Medal, Graham Honeybell, has changed clubs from New Norfolk to Clarence, but still continues with his inspirational play. If Graham Honeybell fires, Clarence burns.
And Graham Honeybell, he thought he was on the back line then.
But in front, fine mark taken by Graham Honeybell, who dropped back into that defensive position once again.
Players setting themselves. Great mark, Honeybell. What a great mark. Positioned himself, experienced right in the middle of the pack, wedged between two Hobart players in Thurgood and Stephen Hay.
Andy Bennett's first year in TFL football has been a success for both the man and his team, Sandy Bay. He has inspired the Bay to 13 straight wins leading up to Saturday's grand final, and along the way has taken out most of Hobart's media awards.
Bennett goes for Dolliver. Well played, Andy Bennett. Shepard's his target. Bennett over the top. Andy Bennett, the wet conditions not stopping his spring. Thumps on towards Bennett. He waited for it and got it. Gets a little push on, so he decides he'll run. Pass on, looking for Johnston.
Over many years, the Glenorchy Football Club have been fortunate to have the services of a player of the calibre of Roland Curley. In moments of crisis, he can be relied upon to turn defence into attack. 1986 has again been another great year for the Magpie stalwart.
Curley gathered that in nicely. He's hot. Does it beautifully. The former backman bombs away. He's put the mate up. For Walker, spoilt by Curley. Linton. Curley will give it back, get it back via Klug, and Curley can kick the goal.
Melbourne import Craig Hoyer is one of the hard-to-come-by commodities in Tasmanian football. A good big man. He rarely puts in a bad game with the much-improved Hobart side, and is one of the big chances for tonight's medal.
Pass for the handball, and duly gets it.
Kicks it to Dale Frawley. He's got Hoyer lurking behind him. Gives it to the big fellow who continues to do well. Now he's found Stephen Wilson.
A bad effort, but not quite the legs, and Hoyer the mark.
Great mark by Craig Hoyer on that occasion. Negri tackled. Hoyer, my word, there's two of the key motivators.
Among the many recruiting coups for North Hobart in season 86 was the acquisition of the talented former Launceston utility player, Darren Davies. Darren is another consistent performer and is the type to catch the umpire's eye by often gaining more than 20 possessions a match.
Rebounds off his teammate and Adams. Good play then by the North Hobart player and Darren Davies. Spears a pass forward to Pelham. He's caught. Nowhere to go, Tony Pelham. Play on is the call. Ball comes out loose. The elusive plane. Hand pass to Maples. Got a teammate further afield. Looks for him and puts it over very nicely to Darren Davies, who can run into an open goal and put it away. And there's the first goal of the afternoon.
Well, what a pleasure it is to look back on the seasons that some of our fine players have had. And I would venture to say that the winner was in fact among the last group of players that we saw. Let's have a look at that leaderboard and update the situation with just 8 votes worth 3 to go. Andy Bennett leading on 22, Craig Hoyer 18, Graham Honeybell on 15.
Clarence Darren Shepherd.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please congratulate the winner of the 1986 Holden William Leach Medal from the Sandy Bay Football Club, Andy Bennett. This is just the time of the night when I get to talk to the winner for you. But I, from experience, know that Andy is a man of few words and a lot of action. But Andy, I'd just like you to think for a moment about your football career. I believe that you were a near miss in South Australia a few years ago for a best and fairest. How does it feel to win the William Leach?
It's a very pleasant experience. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, some years ago, I think I was supposed to be one of the favourites in Adelaide, and that passed me by. So I guess this night makes up for that personal experience.
You've had a fantastic year, winning most of the media awards. I know that you're going to pick up a motor car from Channel 6 at the weekend, the William Leach. What do you put the good form down to this season? Is it the change of address?
Well, it certainly helped, yes. My personal success is really, I owe that to the many people that I've been supported by, particularly at Sandy Bay, but also in the league. Moving to Tasmania, as it's turned out, has been the right decision. I particularly at this stage would like to thank Bob Gozzi. At one stage it looked like I wasn't going to come to Tasmania, but Bob's a persistent sort of character, and I'd like to thank him for maintaining his persistence for so long.
Okay, Andy, I know that you've got a big week stretching in front of you. I'd like to wish you and your club and Glenorchy Football Club all the best. May it be a great grand final on Saturday. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a fine winner of this year's trophy Andy Bennett is. Tremendous. It's been a great night. I hope you've enjoyed it wherever you've viewed this around Tasmania at home, and I'm certainly hoping that the grand finals right round Tasmania at the weekend in the NTFA, the Union and TFL statewide will be a great success. As we leave you tonight, remember we looked at the marks of the year and the goals of the year. As we go out, have a look at the ones that we selected as being the best for 1986. Good night from West Point.
Lovely cut from Boyd to Armstrong. Fox from behind. Baldy Fox magic. Oh. When the going gets tough, Baldy is the man who usually gets going in these situations.
On attempted by Goulet, not effective. Plain does well. Butters up after his own handball. Twists, turns. How do you like this for a piece of play? Goal. Oh,
magnificent. Stay with us for next on ABC, the Joe Bugner Quick Tennis Fight, coming up shortly.